So you've been calling out the bull run in the real estate cycle for a while now, and you're still maintaining that the real estate cycle in India will remain in uptrend. What gives you this conviction that real estate cycle in India is an uptrend, considering that real estate prices on an average in last 3 years in India are anywhere up between 50 to 70%?
Well, we're probably due a bit of a pause to refresh in the property cycle, but in the big picture, we've entered the fourth year of a recovery after a 7-year downturn, and during that downturn, real estate prices went up less than income growth. So my view is there's huge pent-up upgrading demand. I believe the inventory in the top 7 cities is in a multi-year low. So what should happen is that the property recovery should gradually broaden out in terms of it's being led by the high end. That's what normally happens. And hopefully that's what normally happens in a property cycle. The high end leads the recovery. And hopefully we should get some rate cuts in India in the next 12 months, and that will cause property to become more affordable in price levels, lower price levels, such as below the equivalent of $200,000 for a unit. So I'm hearing 500,000 property sales projected in the top 7 cities this year. Basically, the amount of properties being bought in India is still very low, what we've seen in China at the peak. So I think right now, I think we should hope that the property cycle can run another 4 years. We're just entered in the fourth year of this upturn. I don't see any reason why it should suddenly finish.
Chris, allow me to zoom out a bit and take it back to global events. And the next calendar event, which in a sense could have an impact on financial markets, is the US elections. It's going to be Trump versus Kamala Harris. What do you think is up ahead for us, and what do you think Wall Street will like, and what do you think Wall Street may not like, depending on the outcome of the US election?
I think the single most important factor in this upcoming presidential election is that there's a decisive winner. I think that's what the market will most want to see. The worst thing for the market would be a disputed election result. So that would be my first view. For the moment, the polls remain quite close, but they are in Kamala Harris's favor. From an equity market standpoint, a Donald Trump victory would be more risk-on because he's going to be very pro-deregulation. He's going to be wanting to extend tax cuts, and he's going to be wanting to increase energy production, which could lead to a weaker oil price. So he's going to be more risk-on, whereas I think Kamala Harris would be more status quo. Probably the biggest difference between the two candidates in domestic policy would be in the energy area. But I think the key point for the market is that there's a decisive outcome.
Chris, what do you make of some of these global powerful themes? For example, EV, energy transition. These are two large themes which are now widely debated both at government level and also at corporate level. And given that what's happened to some of these EV and energy transition related stocks, where do you think these two mega trends are headed, and can investors still make money by betting either on EV stocks or by energy transition stocks?
Now, the energy transition is happening. The problem is that the energy transition story got kind of in some ways distorted by the ESG theme and the green political movement, and it suddenly became fashionable to adopt these race to zero targets. In the UK, they had some very ambitious target for stopping ICE cars, and there's been a rethinking of this because obviously a lot of these targets were proven to be wholly impractical. So the simple point is if the renewable story is as good as its proponents make out, such all the solar story, then it's going to happen because it's going to become competitive, because it's going to be cheap. We don't need all these forced agendas. And clearly in India, there's an understandable huge focus on renewable investment to reduce the dependence on imported crude. But at the end of the day, India is going to need to consume all the energy it can find, as is China. So it's not either or, it's everything.
Really appreciate your time. Enjoy your stay in India, and it's always a pleasure to have you on ET Now.
There comes a time when your heart calls for you to arise. Plant your feet solid into the ground. Decide your own limits, and then break right through them. Become something more. It's my time to rise.